Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Pokémon Film Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing the 6th animated film to be released as part of the Pokémon franchise, Jirachi, Wishmaker. Now, as I mentioned last week, this film is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, and that's mostly because of how I first discovered it. Now, unlike the last Pokémon movies that I basically learned about via ads and other various doodads that showcase that a movie is out there, I first discovered this movie long after it had been released, namely because, as you do when you're a kid, there are days when you're homesick because, well, I don't know, you didn't wash your hands that day. Point is, I was homesick one day, and of course I had Cartoon Network on, and since it was daytime TV, they're not showing a lot of their shows. Instead, they decided to just show a movie. In this case, they decided to show this Pokemon movie. Now, again, I loved Pokemon as a kid. Now, admittedly, when this movie came out, I was starting to not watch Pokemon as often as I used to. Again, just with the seasons constantly changing the cast and new settings, it was hard to keep track of and keep up with at times. So I would watch every now and then if I was interested, but I wasn't keeping up with it as much as I used to when I was younger. And as a result, like I said, I didn't see this movie. But again, it was a Pokemon movie, so figure what the heck, I'd want to watch it, and maybe I want to record it, because I was into recording movies off TV at the time. And so I did remember watching it, and at the time, I remembered loving it. I thought it was a genuinely cute and sweet movie, and I just kind of went nuts for it. Now, admittedly, when I got older and wound up getting the Pokemon Collector's Edition DVD, which of course has Pokemon Forever Through Destiny Deoxys on it, I did rewatch the movie then, and as an adult, I could see through a bit of the veneer and did start seeing more of the cracks and everything. But I'd be lying if I said this movie doesn't still hold a special place in my heart, just for when I first saw it. But with that said, is this film a bad movie? Well, I wouldn't go that far. Which, if you want me to explain why I think that, well, let's get to our plot summary. Now, the thing is, this film does have a prologue like all the other Pokemon movies. But for the sake of trying to keep things flowing, I'm not going to talk about the prologue, mostly because the film does kind of restate what happens in the prologue later on, so I figured maybe it's better to wait till then to bring it up. Although I will give some comments to the prologue. It's actually a nice little thing that, like all the other Pokemon movies, is there to help introduce the world of Pokemon, and how it does it is actually through a montage of cameos with most of the legendary Pokemon we've seen in the other Pokemon movies, like Mewtwo, Celebi, Lugia, Latios and Latias. It's actually some pretty nice stuff, and it's kind of a nice way of recapping the previous films without really recapping them. It's good stuff. But if you want to actually get to actual plot, the film sort of begins, technically, with Ash and Co. as they're wandering through a field at night. Now, like I said last week, this film is the first film in the Pokemon series that's part of the advanced line of the show. Namely, this is the part of the anime where they began adapting the Gen 3 games. And as a result, the main cast has changed once again. Now, Ash and Brock are still regular members of the cast, but in place of Misty, we have 2 new members, a brother-sister duo by the name of May and Max. May, believe it or not, was actually the female trainer option that players could have picked in the Gen 3 games, whereas Max, I really have no idea if he's connected to the games or not, so if he is, let me know. If he's not, well, then he was just created for the anime. Point is, May's a Pokemon trainer as well, and Max is just coming along for the ride because I guess he wants to tag along with his sister. Yeah, admittedly, I didn't actually see how May and Max were introduced to the group when I was a kid, and I still haven't seen it now that I'm older, so correct me in any way, because I genuinely don't know. Point is, they're now part of the group, and they're traveling with Ash and Brock as they travel through whatever the hell the name of the region was in Gen 3. Again, I don't know everything about Pokemon, so bear with me here. Apologies. But anyway, the reason why this foursome is traveling through here is because apparently this is the place where where a festival is going to be held in celebration of the arrival of a celestial body known as the Millennium Comet, which is supposed to pass by the Earth once every 1,000 years, and is supposed to stay within range of the Earth for approximately 7 nights. And as such, that's where this festival is. As such, there's a festival being set up for that, and Ash and Co. want to be the first ones there. Although when they arrive on the scene where the festival is being set up, well, no one's there yet. It's basically just an empty lot. As such, they decide to camp out for the night, but they don't have to wait long, as during the night they're stirred awake as the entire festival is just being set up, and it's actually some pretty nice stuff. They're bringing out rides that look pretty cool. They got stands and vendors, all that really nice jazz. But the real star attraction is when the magician arrives, and this, my friends, is the introduction of the Great Butler. No, yeah, I think that's his name, yeah. The Great Butler. And yes, his name is Butler. Basically how he sets everything up is that what I'm assuming is nobody, because I have no idea if he knows that Ash and Co are there. He basically pulls out a box, gets out a magic wand, and then taps the box and causes all these pink balloons to come floating out of the box, where his assistant, a woman named Diane, who may or may not be his wife, comes out and begins kind of fanning the balloons to go to various spots. And when the balloons explode, they explode into these boxes, which in turn open up, spread out, and showcase, and basically should make the mesh wiring that eventually comes together to set up the tent. It's actually pretty damn cool. I dig it. But yeah, overnight the festival grounds are set up, and so the next day, Ash and Co just have fun. They just go around the festival and go and have fun. They ride the rides, they eat the candy, they're just doing all the fun, wacky, tacky shit that you're supposed to do at a festival. And of course, they decide to wrap everything up by going to the tent where the Great Butler is putting on his magic show. And of course, in the beginning, everyone loves it. It's a great magic show, and he's a good showman. He even has his own assistants in the form of not just Diane, but his own Pokémon, which in the beginning showcases a Curly and a Mightyena. However, during one part of his act, Diane ends up bursting out onto the scene out of a box, I think, or a tube. Yeah, it was a tube, and she ends up showing off this weird purplish pink rock, which he shows out to the crowd, and it just begins radiating a light that just makes everyone look on it in awe. However, as Max looks on this thing, he begins hearing a voice speaking to him in his head. So a voice saying, "Wish the star," which confuses Ash, or Max, as he wonders where the hell it's coming from, before he realizes it's coming from the rock. As whatever is in there starts calling Max the wish maker, and how the star is calling to it, and how it wishes that Max was on stage with it. Which in turn causes Max to get up from his seat and run on stage, with Ash chasing after because, get the kid off the stage. As such, once Max arrives, Ash apologizes to Butler and Diane because Max just disturbed the show. But when Max reveals that he was hearing a voice emanating from the stone that Diane was holding, Butler and Diane seem to look a little surprised, but begin smiling. As such, Butler just kind of rolls with the fact that Ash and Max are there, and basically makes them a part of the act, as he has them go into a box, and has the trick being they have to get out of the box or it's blown up, and, well, that's basically what happens, as they're basically ejected out of the bottom, sent flying through an underground chute back to the stands in the back, while one of Butler's Pokemon ends up blowing up the box. And so yeah, everything's all hunky-dory, but then the show is interrupted by Team Rocket. Yeah, they were here this whole time. They were working as clowns and were handing out flyers for the show. As such, they steal Pikachu, they steal Curly and Mightyena, and plan to make a run for it, and they really do not get far before they get shot out of the sky by Butler's other Pokemon, which, hold on one second, this is bugging me. Sorry, his other Pokemon was a Dusclops. It was bugging me that I couldn't remember the name. But yeah, his Dusclops ends up attacking their getaway ride, which in turn sets Pikachu free, and Pikachu does what he does best and sends Team Rocket flying, which frees Mightyena and Curlia, with the audience really not really realizing that there were literal criminals there, because Butler treats it like it's part of the act. But once the act is over and everyone clears out of the tent, Butler and Diane have a word with Ash and Co., and they reveal that the voice that Max heard from the stone was actually a Pokemon named Jirachi, and that Jirachi was specifically speaking to Max because, well, I guess Max is its chosen friend. You see, apparently, Jirachi is a Pokemon that slumbers for 1,000 years, and every 1,000 years when the Millennium Comet comes through, Jirachi awakens alongside the comet. However, in order for Jirachi to fully awaken, he not only needs the comet to be flying in the night sky, but he apparently needs a friend, which is where Max comes in. And as such, Butler decides that if they want Jirachi to wake up, then maybe they need to put Jirachi in the care of Max. So they just hand over the rock containing the very powerful Pokemon to the presumably 7, 8-year-old kid. I have no idea how old Max is. He's smaller than Ash, and Ash is supposed to be 10, so I have no idea how young this kid is. Point is, they're trusting this kid with this Pokemon, and I'm surprised he doesn't drop him at any point. But whatever. Max takes this job seriously, and thus Butler and Diane just let Ash and Co. just walk through the festival with Max carrying Jirachi's cocoon rock. I don't know what it's called, but they end up finding something as May ends up finding a stall which sells a bunch of various knickknacks, including something that looks like a dream catcher, but is supposedly called a wish finder. Basically, it's supposed to coincide with the Millennium Comet, and you're supposed to make a wish on it. And every night that the comet's in the sky, you have to like flip something down onto it. And if you do it all 7 nights, then your wish will come true. So May wants that. However, after May buys that, Ash and Co. end up going to the outskirts of the festival because they want to see the Millennium Comet, which they don't almost see because it's a cloudy night, but eventually the comet does come into view, and at first Max almost falls asleep to it, with May humming him a lullaby that their mother used to sing to them. But before Max can fully drift off, the comet begins having an effect on Jirachi's, I can say, cocoon, as it begins glowing and having a strange effect on the Earth, as energy actually starts pulsating to Jirachi. And in turn, as a result of this, the cocoon begins glowing, floats up into the sky, and in a strange, glorious mishmash of lights, from the cocoon emerges Jirachi. And actually, hold on one second. I can pause this. Sorry, I wanted to show this off. This is Jirachi. Now, the colors aren't exactly the same as this card, but yeah, that's Jirachi. And what I like is that the instant you see Jirachi, it's fucking adorable. Like, this thing, like, literally, the little tassels on Jirachi's arms are wrapped around it like a blanket. And as it floats back to the ground and lands in Max's arms, they unfurl, which just show its tiny little body, and it's the cutest darn thing. And when it opens up, it just looks at the world so curiously, like, oh. And it's friggin' adorable. As such, Ash and Co. end up introducing themselves to Jirachi, and Diane ends up running out because I'm assuming that she saw the light coming around them, plus the pulsations going towards Jirachi. And as such, seeing that Jirachi has woken up, Diane tells Ash and Co. that they can spend the night in her and Butler's camper. As such, Ash and Co. take Diane up on the offer, but after they part ways, Diane goes to Butler, lets him know what she saw, and Butler is just happy and amazed by this, as well. It's clear he's got plans for Jirachi, as he ends up unveiling what looks like a machine from underneath the stage of his tent. But either way, back with Ash and Co. and Jirachi. The group's wondering what they can do with Jirachi. You see, the thing is, when Butler handed Jirachi's cocoon over to Max, he mentioned that Jirachi had the special power of granting wishes. And as such, with that knowledge in mind, well, Max and Co. decide they want to test out and see if Jirachi genuinely can grant wishes. As such, Max wishes for Jirachi to give him candy, a crap ton of candy. And as such, but Jirachi kind of hears that and thinks, okay, before utilizing its powers, and, well, at first nothing seems to happen, well, Max's wish seems to bear fruit, as packets upon packets of candy begin teleporting into the camper, to the point where it starts burying Ash and Co. Although this causes them to pretty much freak out, as they're like, awesome, this is amazing, I want a wish! But unfortunately, they all don't really get a chance to ask Jirachi, where the camper gets so filled up with candy that it basically bursts out the back with everyone following after. And unfortunately, despite all the candy that has come of this, Ash and Co. can't keep it, for you see, this candy is stolen! Yeah, it turns out Jirachi can't just make shit out of nothing. Jirachi's powerful, but the candy, it came from the various stalls in the festival. Jirachi has the power to teleport. And so Jirachi, to try and grant Max's wish, basically just teleported all the candy from the festival right to the camper, meaning that nobody has a right to eat any of it. Although May takes a bite out of a candy bar before she learns this knowledge. Although in frustration, upon learning that Jirachi basically stole all this candy, she orders Jirachi to try to get rid of it, but she words it in the way where she tells Jirachi, make the problem go away. And Jirachi, who's basically clearly not fully understanding the situation, just sees the angry girl in front of him that's just bitching at him for no reason, and Jirachi's like, okay, and then teleports Mei right back into the pile of candy. It's great. I love it. It's just like, be careful what you wish for. You will get it. But unfortunately, Jirachi doesn't really have a lot of time to grant any further wishes because utilizing his power so much has kind of conked him out. He's not in hibernation again. He just needs time to recharge his batteries. As such, Butler does promise Max that he will wake up the next day, and sure enough, that's exactly what happens. As Jirachi wakes up with Max on standby, and immediately when Jirachi sees Max, Jirachi just floats up to him and just kind of starts riding on his head and giving him a pseudo hug. It's adorable. As such, from there, Max and Jirachi just kind of spend the entire day having fun. They go out into the festival, ride the rides, play the games, buy the candy, just do all the things that kids do when they're at a carnival. In the meantime, Ash and Co are just working at the festival. Ash and Brock are working as clowns, while Mei is doing busybody work. Point is, they're all just kind of doing their own thing in the festival, while Max and Jirachi are having fun. Although, unfortunately, Jirachi doesn't know what the word stop means, because as the day winds down and Mei is putting stuff away, Max offers to help her when she accidentally almost knocks over a beam, and when he tries helping her push it up, Jirachi just tells Max, come on, I want to play some more, and when Max says, I'm sorry, just give me a second, Jirachi responds to steal Max's glasses and fly away, forcing Max to stop helping his sister. So, yeah, Jirachi's kind of a little shit, but I like them for that. Sorry, food. However, the good times do not last, as when Max finally catches Jirachi and gets his glasses back, well, the circus tent ends up getting attacked by an unwanted visitor. In this case, by the Pokemon Absol, who apparently is here for Jirachi. Something that even Jirachi echoes, something that even Jirachi echoes. As such, Absol is not coming in peace, as he immediately begins trying to attack Max, with the young kid fleeing with Jirachi in his arms. And while Ash and Mei do try to help Max by sending out their Pokemon, in this case Pikachu and Torchic, well, Jirachi, already recognizes that Absol is a friend, and so Jirachi ends up teleporting Pikachu and Torchic outside the tent. They're okay as while they're teleported in the air, they land softly on the tent, so everything's fine. But thankfully, before Absol can launch any more attacks, Butler manages to bait into coming after the humans, which in turn allows him to activate a trapdoor, which in turn causes Absol to fall into a cage. With Butler using Curlia to knock Absol out, so he can't do anything. But yeah, it's clear that something. But yeah, basically it's clear that Jirachi is wanted elsewhere, though unfortunately we don't get to learn much where, because, well, from the perspective of everybody else here, well, Jirachi was almost attacked by this Absol. So basically they decide to write this off as nothing as everyone goes back to bed, Jirachi included. However, Mei, wanting to keep up with her Wishfinder thing, and goes out during the night and ends up folding a notch on her charm. But as she does, she sees someone walking away from Butler's bus. And that someone is Butler himself. And in his arms is Jirachi. So yeah, it's here where I should probably talk about Butler's backstory. You see, the thing is, Butler wasn't always a magician. While he's always had aspirations of being a great magician, his original career path before this was of a scientist, specifically a scientist working for the criminal organization Team Magma, which, if you haven't played the Gen 3 games, was basically one of Gen 3's answers to Team Rocket. Again, one of their answers, depending on which version of the game you bought, depending on which one of these depending on whether you fought Team Magma or Team Aqua, with the Sapphire version of the Gen 3 games having you face off against both. Point is, Butler used to be working for Team Magma, and one of Team Magma's greatest goals was to capture the legendary Pokemon Groudon. However, Butler thought he could do them one better. Rather than capturing the genuine article, he thought he could clone them a Groudon. Basically, he had managed to get a fossilized bit of the original Groudon, and he believed that if he could funnel this bit through a machine that he invented, then he could literally grow Team Magma a Groudon. Unfortunately, when he tried to demonstrate his findings to a council of Team Magma's leaders or agents or whatever, well, the machine didn't have enough power to adequately make a Groudon, and the machine exploded, which resulted in Butler pretty much getting laughed out of the room, with Team Magma pretty much telling him, fuck off, we can just get our own Groudon, we don't need you. And as such, Butler pretty much wound up grabbing the remains of Groudon, and pretty much told them, screw you, you'll all see, I will make sure you pay, yada yada yada, which is where this whole thing comes in. Like I said, the machine, the initial machine that he used to try and make Groudon did not have enough power, which is why he wants Jirachi. You see, the thing is, when Jirachi wakes up every 1,000 years, Jirachi is supposed to absorb the energy of the Millennium Comet. After he does this, he goes back to sleep in the ground, and the energy he absorbs from the comet is slowly released into the surrounding land, and which in turn makes things lusher, greener, nicer, just all around better. And as such, after the 1,000 years are up and the Millennium Comet comes back, Jirachi wakes up, spends 7 days doing whatever the hell he wants, and on the final night he repeats the process over and over. However, what Butler wants to do is that he wants to basically take advantage of this ritual to absorb the energy of the Millennium Comet and funnel it into his machine, which in turn he thinks will give him the necessary energy to make Groudon. Of course, this process does not come without a few bumps in the road, because, well, in his impatience, he wants Jirachi to absorb the energy from the comet on the second night of the comet flying by Earth, rather than wait until the 7th night like he's supposed to. As such, that's why he's bringing Jirachi back to his tent, as he puts Jirachi in this area on the machine, which looks like a power source, but it's where Jirachi is, and he basically orders Jirachi to open up Jirachi's true eye. It's this little eye that's on its chest, which actually is just closed for the entire time. And of course, Jirachi doesn't want to do that, and so he basically has Dusclops use his psychic powers to force Jirachi to open his eye, which does end up resulting in Jirachi being able to absorb the energy from the Millennium Comet, but unfortunately the feedback from this causes the machine to explode once more. Thankfully, it's at this time that Ash and Co arrive, as May went to go tell them what she saw, and so they basically rush on the scene wanting to get Jirachi back, and the machine blows up. Unfortunately, Jirachi has a few scorch marks on him, but Butler doesn't see this as a failure. No, if anything, the fact that his machine was able to use the energy, he just sees as a success, and he thinks that if he can just push it a little further, he can get exactly what he wants. However, Diane thinks that maybe this is going a little too far, because they nearly killed Jirachi here, so maybe they could, pull back a little, maybe not do this, but Butler's not hearing any of that shit. He wants Groudon, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get Groudon. As a result, the group basically just take the group basically take Jirachi and pretty much say, screw you, you're not getting that, and so they try running off. And while Butler does attempt to try and intercept them, thanks to the interference of Pikachu and Absol, because I think during the confrontation Absol managed to break out of his cage, the group manages to make a getaway and run to Butler's camper, and they basically just drive away. Though Butler does start tracking them, as he has his Mightyena attach a tracking device to the truck, which unfortunately gets knocked off during the travel, so hey, no real point of putting that on there, was there? But the point is, Diana is actually with Ash and Co now as they're making their getaway, and it's here where Diane does kind of give the full backstory. Because you see, the thing is, going back to that prologue that I kind of glossed over before, that prologue actually showed Diane and Butler as they went to Jirachi's home and, well, basically extracted the stone that held Jirachi, Butler knew that the time of the Millennium Comet was coming close, so he wanted to have Jirachi on standby so that when Jirachi absorbed the energy that he could take advantage of it. So, yeah, basically it's clear that he's a little obsessed, especially since, like I said, that first experiment hurt Jirachi so much, so the group is very much in favor of not letting Jirachi be a part of this, because if this first experiment hurt Jirachi that bad, then what would happen if he was able to what would happen if Butler was able to successfully pull this shit off? What would happen to Jirachi? Well, nobody wants to find out. As such, everyone decides that they need to get Jirachi away from Butler as quickly as possible. And, well, Jirachi himself does have an idea where they can take him. You see, You see, going back to what I mentioned about how Jirachi, holding on, I'm pulling my phone, how Jirachi would release the energy from the Millennium Comet into him out into the world as he slept for 1,000 years. Well, the place where he releases that energy is a valley called Farina. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I probably am, and I probably misspelled it when I typed it over there. Point is, Farina is supposed to be Jirachi's home, and that's where Jirachi wants to go back to. As such, the group decides, well, why not? Let's get Jirachi home. And so Diane, who thinks that what Butler is doing is mad, decides to give them aid. And from there, basically, the next part of this movie is just the group as they're traveling to Farina, which unfortunately is a several days journey. In that time, Max and Jirachi do kind of bond a little and have fun, but unfortunately, even Max knows this fun ain't gonna last. After all, once the 7 days are up, Jirachi's going to go into hibernation again, and unless Max has somehow mastered the art of living for over 1,000 years, I doubt he and Jirachi are ever going to see each other again. And Max is fully aware of this, and as they continue traveling further and further to Farina, well, I guess actually closer and closer to Farina. I am bad with words. But basically, the point is, Max does not want to accept the fact that he and Jirachi will never see each other again. Although this does lead to a good moment between him and Ash, where Ash says that the best of friends never truly leave each other's lives. They always leave a part of themselves with you that you'll carry with you forever. With Ash even comparing Max and Jirachi's parting to him and Misty. It's actually some pretty nice stuff, although he doesn't say Misty, but we can infer Misty based on what he's saying. Point is, it's actually some really nice and mature stuff that actually does bring a smile to my face. After that, like I said, we get another montage where we see the group getting closer and closer to Farina, until eventually they do manage to reach Farina on the 6th day, which does allow Max and Jirachi to have one last night together where they just goof around, though Max wants to just stay up longer so he can play with Jirachi as much as he can, even to the point where he tries guilt-tripping his sister when she tells him, look, you gotta go to bed. But all it takes is May singing a lullaby again, and Max and Jirachi just go right to sleep. As such, the 7th day finally comes, and Diane, Ash, Jirachi, and co. make their way further into Farina. And much like with Celebi in the 4th movie, all the Pokemon of Farina recognize Jirachi and are basically just standing by as everyone's leading Jirachi further in. With Absol even managing to meet up with the group and lead them to where Jirachi is supposed to take his final rest. However, when they finally reach this, Max is still not willing to let Jirachi go, because again, they're BFFs, he doesn't want to say goodbye. He even tries using the I wish mentality. He even tries making a wish on Jirachi, saying, I wish we could stay friends together forever. But Jirachi says that the star is calling to him because the cavern they're in actually does have a hole directly into the sky, and they can see the Millennium Comet there. And so Jirachi floats up there, and he opens his true eye again as he gets ready to absorb the energy from the comet. Unfortunately, somehow, Butler beat the group to Farina. As it turns out, the cave is rigged with all these electromagnetic probes or whatever, which in turn capture Jirachi, and it turns out apparently Butler put a fucking tarp over the cave, because the tarp falls over and we see that Butler is suspended in the air in Farina, standing on a platform that's outfitted with his machine. And as such, the electrical whatsits end up raising Jirachi up to the platform before trapping Ash and Co. in a Faraday cage. And while Diane tries telling Butler that he's mad for what he's doing, he just responds with, he's not mad, just a little angry and impatient to get on with the show. I am so tempted to make an I'm not mad, just very angry joke. Point is, it's the 7th night, and Jirachi is already gearing up to absorb the energy from the Millennium Comet, so what's the harm, right? As such, once again, he puts Jirachi in the machine, only this time, since he's not forcing Jirachi to open his true eye, the process is actually a lot smoother, as Jirachi does manage to absorb the energy from the comet, and the comet and thus the energy is fueled right into the machine. And sure enough, the machine immediately gets to work as it utilizes the fragment of Groudon that Butler had on him, and begins actually making a blueprint of Groudon right there in the on the ground. In the meantime, Ash and Co managed to free themselves from the Faraday cage that Butler put them in, thanks to the assistance of Absol and a Flygon. And as such, the Flygon actually gives Ash and Max a chance to try and go after Butler, with a pair of them riding on Flygon's back. And once they reach up to the platform that Butler's on, Butler immediately pulls out his own Pokemon, in this case a Salamence, and it leads to an air battle between Salamence and Flygon, with Ash staying on Flygon's back while he drops Max and Pikachu off of the platform so they can get Jirachi, with Butler not being there to guard the event because, well, he gets on Salamance's back because apparently he wants to make this an air battle. Go figure. Hold on, gonna get a drink because I'm very thirsty. Oh shit. But anyway, Max and Pikachu do manage to free Jirachi with really no problem whatsoever. In fact, unlike the last time that Butler tried this thing, Jirachi is 100% fine. No damage whatsoever. Literally, after they pull him out of the machine, Jirachi just wakes up, no worse for wear, and he's just like, "Oh, hey, Max, how you doing?" It's like, I guess Butler just needed to wait. I don't know why he couldn't do that before, but yeah. Jirachi absorbed the energy with no problem, the machine handled it no problem, and it turns out that even Max and Pikachu saving Jirachi doesn't actually stop Butler's plans, because the machine did exactly what it's supposed to, and it did finally manage to make the blueprint for Groudon. And so while Ash comes back around to pick up Max, Pikachu, and Jirachi, well, the machine did exactly what it was supposed to, and because from the ground arises the Groudon that Butler was trying to make. Unfortunately, it turns out this Groudon isn't exactly a perfect copy. Because you see, while it has the shape of Groudon, the body of Groudon, even the markings on its back that make it look like Groudon, well, a few telltale signs reveal that this thing ain't Groudon. For starters, its eyes are blank, empty, and just weirdly and yellowish. I don't know if Groudon's eyes are yellow by themselves, but these ones just look demonic in their sense. Its belly doesn't look like it's Groudon's actual belly, but instead looks like it's made of this weird viscous, I want to say lava or something burning and churning, I don't know. And its mouth, it doesn't even have a fucking mouth. It basically just opens the space where its mouth should be, and it looks like, but instead it looks like it's made of tar, as the lips feel like the lips feel like it's just oil parting and growing. It's actually pretty damn creepy and disturbing. And even Butler looks on this monstrosity and thinks, wait, that's not Groudon. But, unfortunately, this thing is alive, and it turns out that apparently it's like the antithesis to what Jirachi is, because as it begins walking through Farina, it begins actually sucking the life out of the land itself, as any fauna that it passes by begins withering up and dying. So, yeah, this thing's clearly evil. And unfortunately, it gets worse because Absol, realizing that this thing is a threat to its home, immediately tries attacking evil Groudon, which is what I'm going to call it now, and in response, Groudon decides to get aggressive as the spikes on its body immediately grow and get sharper before transforming into tendrils, which immediately latch out all across the area and grab whatever Pokemon they can get, sucking them into its body. I'm sorry, I spit on the tablet. Hold on a second. Sorry, got a little too passionate there. But yeah, Groudon is not exact. This ain't. Yeah, evil Groudon means business. And even Butler, when he sees this, is just left speechless as he eventually lands on the ground near the group. And while Diane pleads with him to try and help them to try and stop this thing, he has no idea how to stop it. This is just like exactly the opposite of what he wanted. This thing is pure evil, and it's literally wrecking with the land with every step, and it is absorbing every living life form it can, which it tries to do with Butler before Diane gets in the way and she gets absorbed. As such, the group realizes they need to run, which is easier said than done because Groudon's tendrils try chasing after them and even manages to grab May and Brock. Also Team Rocket. Yeah, Team Rocket was trailing the group this whole time, and now they get caught by evil Groudon's tendrils too. Bye, because they didn't matter at this point. Point the last survivors are now Ash, Pikachu, Max, Jirachi, and Butler. But unfortunately, in an attempt to try and save Ash, Max, and Pikachu from evil Groudon's tendrils, Jirachi ends up teleporting them away. And it turns out that Groudon senses that. You see, the thing is, since evil Groudon was made from the same energy that Jirachi absorbed from the Millennium Comet, I guess you could say in a way the two of them are connected, so to speak. And as such, since evil Groudon is actively absorbing whatever it can into its body, energy and Pokemon alike, it immediately wants Jirachi, as its tendrils basically follow Ash, Max, and Jirachi wherever they teleport. It doesn't matter where they go, this thing is hot on their heels, and it is not stopping for anything. So they really have to get out of there as fast as they can. And while Ash and Max get some assistance from Flygon to get away from the area, that's a temporary solution at best, because again, evil Groudon wants Jirachi. Thankfully, that's when Butler arrives on the scene, and the thing is, while he may have wanted to make a Groudon, this is the farthest thing from that goal, and considering that this thing ate the only person in his life he truly cared about, well, he now has a much higher reason to want to stop it. As such, he flies alongside of Ash and Max on his Salamence, and he basically offers them a deal. He thinks that if they can get Jirachi back to his machine and he can reverse the polarity, then they can basically unmake evil Groudon by absorbing the energy that made him back into Jirachi. Now, of course, Ash and Max really don't have any reason to want to trust this guy, but they don't really have a lot of options, and Jirachi ends up vouching for him because he does care for Diane, so they decide to hear him out. As such, basically what the plan is that they need to lure evil Groudon away from Butler's machine, because, well, it's suspended above Farina, and evil Groudon already takes up a lot of space anyway, because it's all pretty much a fucking giant. So basically what happens is that Ash and Max take Jirachi on Flygon's back, and they basically just lure evil Groudon away from the area. Sorry, still things are digesting. And in the meantime, Butler takes Salamence up to his machine, and he immediately begins tinkering with the machine in an attempt to try and reverse its polarity. Unfortunately, this is easier said than done, because the suspension cables that were holding up the machine before, well, they're not exactly stable, because when evil Groudon first formed, he walked through one of them, and now this thing is basically just holding on for dear life. And the more that Butler walks around on it, the less stable it gets. And so when it gets to the point where he has to take the fossil piece of Groudon and then just flip it around in the machine, he almost loses his grip and drops it, but thankfully, thanks to the intervention of Ash and Max, they manage to get it, and allows him to put it back in. As such, Ash and Max bring Jirachi back and put him in the machine, and so Butler begins activating it, though unfortunately he ends up getting thrown aside before he can fully activate it, and so Ash has to do the final thing and has to flip the final switch, but it does seem to work as the machine activates, and it once more shoots a laser into the ground, which actually begins drawing energy up from the ground into Jirachi. And since that energy is exactly what evil Groudon is made of, it starts absorbing it from evil Groudon as well. Something that this monstrosity immediately takes notice of, and it tries making one final attempt to get Jirachi by shooting out its tendrils at it, but Butler gets in the way and gets absorbed himself. As such, with this thing pretty much dying and Jirachi getting stronger, evil Groudon decides to make a final Hail Mary as he goes up to the platform and literally tries to smother this thing in his gooey, oozy, decaying body. But, well, Jirachi ain't having any of that shit, as Jirachi managed to absorb enough energy that it's able to basically fly up into evil Groudon and push this fucker right into the sky like a shooting star before he fucking explodes. It's kind of amazing in its own strange way. But, yeah, evil Groudon is dead. And because Jirachi is a nice guy, he teleported all the Pokemon and people that evil Groudon absorbed back onto the ground, safe and sound, including Ash, Max, Pikachu, Brock, and May. So everything is all hunky-dory. Also Diane and Butler. Also Team Rocket, though they're on top of a giant rock pillar, so nobody really knows they're there. But the thing is, everybody is safe. The danger is past, but Jirachi is safe and sound and happy to see everyone. Unfortunately, even though he does manage to meet back up with Max, and the two of them share a hug, well, it's still the 7th night of the Millennium Comet, and, well, while Jirachi has gotten all that energy back, so it's time for him to get some rest. Although, before he goes to sleep, he makes one final request of Max and Co. He asks that they sing him the lullaby that May sang. And so, the group obliges as they all just start humming the same thing, which does lull Jirachi to sleep, with him saying thank you before he's encased in another stone cocoon, before embedding himself in the earth and slowly but surely releasing the energy of the Millennium Comet into Farina. And so from there, well, I guess you could say the movie's over. Well, sort of. We do still have to get our traditional wrap-up in place, as the next morning comes, as everyone has kind of on the outskirts of Farina, but Butler and Diane let Ash and Co know that they're planning to stay in Farina. I'm assuming they're just going to set up a cabin or something, I don't know. Though they do offer to take Ash and Co back to town in their van, which Ash and Co happily accept. Although before Max can join them, Jirachi is able to send out one last message to Max. In this case, Jirachi tells Max that he'll never forget him and that they'll be best friends forever and ever, which Max smiles to before he goes to join the rest of the group. And from there, yeah, the movie's over. After that, basically after this, we get our traditional Pokemon wrap-up as we get a montage of the characters as they're traveling in the credits, including having them get a hitch a ride by the guy who had the stall with all the knickknacks, and it's pretty sweet. I like it, so there you go. But yeah, that was Jirachi, Wishmaker, and what are my thoughts on it? It's fine. Yeah, you'd think that for me calling this film a guilty pleasure, that I would have more negative things to say about it, but as a film by itself, it's just fine. It's just fine. Yeah, okay, let me first get into why I don't think this film is one of the greatest Pokemon films made. And unfortunately, it does kind of have to do with maybe the villain. Now, Butler is an... Actually, you know what? No, he's not. He's not an okay villain. I was about to say that, but he's just... I don't really know what to think of him. I hesitate to call him a complex character. Maybe I'd call him a complex character, but okay, actually, I don't really know what to think about Butler when I really think about it. Butler as a villain, okay, he has the theatrics of a good villain by virtue of him being a magician. In fact, we learned that part of his motivation from when he was younger was that he just liked to entertain, go big, be grand. And you could argue that maybe that's part of the reason why he got so angry when Team Magma told him to hit the road when his experiment to create a new Groudon didn't work, because he was trying to showcase how brilliant he was, and they laughed in his face, and so he became obsessed with proving them wrong. And you could argue that for someone who became a magician, maybe he does want to be the center of attention, but I don't really know if I would call Butler a complex character. I don't know. His motivation throughout the entire movie is basically just a simple revenge plot. Now, ultimately, it's not like he wants to take revenge on the world or anything, God no. He does not have that high aspiration. It's just really a matter of trying to prove to Team Magma that his methods worked. He told them he can make a Groudon, and when they told him, no, you can't, your plan is stupid, get the hell out of here and stop wasting our time, he basically just went, fuck you, I can do it, you just watch me, and it became a single obsession for him as he tried to remake Groudon from the ground up. But the only problem with him being a villain because of the lengths he was willing to go to do it. Now, admittedly, the most villainous thing that he really does in this movie is kidnap Jirachi, and admittedly, that is a bad thing because Jirachi is home is in Farina. But the thing is, as we saw when Max and Jirachi are playing around at the festival, Jirachi is perfectly content with traveling. He's clearly okay with being away from Farina for at least a little while, as long as he's hanging out with people he likes, so I'm gonna maybe give that a notch. I guess, okay, it's bad that he took Jirachi away from his home against his will. So that part is definitely bad, and you can understand why Absol wanted to get Jirachi back. But at the same time, after that, the most evil thing he did was trying to force Jirachi to absorb the energy of the Millennium Comet earlier than he was supposed to. Meaning that if he was just a little bit patient, his whole plan could have worked out. Well, okay, scratch that. His plan would have still backfired anyway because the Groudon he made was fundamentally flawed, disgusting, and just a perversion of life in its very core. But again, going back to when he put Jirachi in his machine the second time, well, Jirachi wasn't struggling. The first time he was trying to force Jirachi to open his true eye and absorb the energy from the comet. But we see that if he had just waited until Jirachi absorbed the eye properly and just talked to Jirachi and said, hey, there's this one thing thing that I really want to do. Could you help me with it? There's a chance Jirachi would have gone for it. Now, admittedly, you could argue that Jirachi could have said no because, well, that energy is needed to be funneled back into the planet, but the thing is, Jirachi's actually a pretty decent Pokemon. He's friendly, he's nice, and if Butler explained everything to Max and said, "Hey, I need Jirachi for this thing. Would you be willing to help me out?" I'm sure Max could have talked Jirachi into it. Either Butler was just afraid Jirachi would say no, or he was just an impatient fucker. So yeah, that's kind of the most villain. Okay, I don't know. I don't really see, he's villainous in the sense that his goals directly force Jirachi into a position he doesn't want to be in. And he does do a fair share of villainous things, but by that same token, his heel face turn at the end, I don't really know if I would call it a convincing heel face turn. I feel like this guy should be carrying a much bigger bit of guilt. Now, believe it or not, I do understand why he decides to start helping our heroes when the climax of the movie kicks in. Because for one thing, his experiment went wrong, and instead of creating a second Groudon, he instead created this evil perversion of Groudon that's literally sucking the life out of the planet as it walks. And that was not what he wanted to do. And on top of that, the fact that this thing basically ate his maybe not wife, does kind of help convince him that, okay, I made a mistake, gotta fix this. So in that regard, I do buy that. It's just that for someone whose whole ideal was that he originally, once upon a time, just wanted to make people smile, but then became the scientist or Team Magma who wanted to try and prove to everybody that he was the best I don't know, I just feel like it should have had more time. Like, maybe we could have had more sympathetic moments with him. Like, actually seeing what drove him, maybe actually see bits of his humanity instead of seeing his obsession and showmanship. Because most of the moments that showcase his humanity only really come in flashbacks and in the climax of the movie. With the most we see of flashbacks being a scene where Diane talks to May about when she and Butler were kids, and Butler used to perform magic shows for her because he just liked seeing her smile, which admittedly, that part is cute. Actually, I will give you that one. That one does actually create a bit of sympathetic emotion for characters, specifically for Diane. I still wouldn't say it does the same for Butler because, well, who you are as a kid is not always who you are as an adult, and so the Butler we're shown in the present day feels like he's a bit disconnected from his younger self, beyond the fact that both wanted to be magicians. So I'm still going to give it some crap for that, though it does at least create some sympathy for Diane, because all she really wants at the end of the day is for Butler to have that same joy again, to see that lust for life again, and to see him smile like he did when they were kids. So I'll give you that one. I'll actually give you that one. That's nice. And I admit that, and again, I do like that it's Diane basically just sacrificing herself to save Butler. That does help bring him over to the side of the Angels. It's just I would have liked a little bit more from Butler. I guess at the end of the day, I don't hate him by any means. He's a fun enough character. He's jovial. He's ecstatic. He's a showman in the purest sense. And I admit I did kind of like seeing him join the good guys at the end. It's just that I would have liked a little bit more to him beyond what we were told. I would have liked to have seen some more humanity from him. Maybe actually show some more connection between him and Diane. And while he does treat her decently in the movie, like, he never talks down to her, he never insults her, and the only time they clash is when Diane ends up siding with the good guys and telling Butler, maybe we shouldn't be sacrificing this incredibly powerful Pokemon that wakes up every 1,000 years just because we want to create a copy of another legendary Pokemon. So, but at the same time, it just, I don't know, I wish I could have had more. I don't hate him, and honestly, maybe after I watch this video, things will finally click for me, and maybe I'll say, actually, I think he's a decent antagonist. It's just, I don't know. I feel like it would have been nice if we had seen more of the man within the monster, so to speak. Like, seen a bit more human moments with him. Maybe actually seen him and Diane actually sharing a few moments beyond them being on stage. Actually showcase more of his kindness when he wasn't trying to put on an act, so to speak. I would have actually liked seeing more of that. Instead, what we're presented with is a guy who's obsessed with proving his point, and by the time he realizes that he made a mistake, at that point we already established he was kind of mad. Again, I buy the why. I buy the why for why he helps the good guys in the end. It's just at the same time would have been nice if we had a little bit more of that. Hell, maybe in the aftermath of everything, we could have had him be more remorseful. Like, he actually could have said, I nearly fucked everyone else's shit up because of my own obsession. I'm sorry. I should not have done that. And then maybe I would have liked him a bit more. It's just that, again, I feel like we should have had a little bit more humanity to him. What we have is all right for him. It's just, I would have liked a little bit more. So, I understand his motivation for why he does what he does. It's just that I would have liked to have more of a connection between why he would go from being bad to good. So, I guess in that regard, he's a mixed bag as well. So, I will consider that a problem. In a similar vein, let's talk about Max and Jirachi's relationship. Now, part of the emotional core with the movie is that Max and Jirachi are supposed to be, like, good friends. And I'll actually give credit where it's due. This is, I think, the first movie so far, do not quote me if basically let me know if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first movie so far where the titular Pokemon in the movie actually befriends another member of the group that isn't Ash. As in this case, Jirachi is actually more attached to Max. And I will give credit where it's due. Max and Jirachi's relationship is fucking adorable. That's one of the reasons I liked this movie when I was a kid. I liked seeing Max and Jirachi just being adorable. I liked seeing this little adorable star child just flying around with Max, just doing all this cute shit, having fun. It was just nice and sweet and adorable. And I honestly bought their little friendship. It was some nice, genuine stuff. The problem is that the film wants to try and build up an emotional core between these two that I unfortunately don't think exists. Now, like to give some examples of emotional cores that I think work in other movies. Let's talk about Spell of the Unknown. In that movie, we did get a good bit of emotional core between Molly and Entei because Entei was created from Molly's dreams of her father, and Entei was there to act as her father, and so he basically did everything that he did for the sake of Molly. And so when he basically had to sacrifice himself for the sake of keeping Molly safe, it hit a lot harder because we saw that they both did genuinely care about one another, and yet Entei was still willing to make the sacrifice because it allowed Molly to continue on. You know, it meant him just disappearing into nothingness. It was sweet. I liked that. And likewise, in Latios and Latias, I like what Latios' sacrifice in that movie hit a lot harder because while Latios and Latias may not have had a deep relationship from what we could see, we learned enough about them that they were genuinely close. They hung out together. They flew around together. Latios was basically the protective older brother to Latias, and so when Latios sacrificed himself for the sake of Ultimar and Latias, it hit a lot harder. And his final goodbye basically was just a gut punch. And so you feel sorry for Latias because this is someone that she cared about, and we were able to see that connection quite literally in the movie because literally Latios could show Latias what he was seeing through shared sight. So even when they were apart, they could still be together. So there is in a sense they were still able to build a proper connection there. Whereas in this movie with Max and Jirachi, I buy that they're friends, but I don't buy the emotional core. They want me to feel sorry for Max when he begins crying that he won't see Jirachi again. And in a way, I can understand that. But the problem is that because we don't see a lot of Max and Jirachi actually, like, bonding, or even going over the whole thing of Jirachi having to go back to sleep at the end of the 7-day cycle, it doesn't hit as hard. We get a couple moments here and there where Max basically lashes out and thinks about it, but we don't really have a lot of moments where Jirachi talks to him about it. We have moments where he talks to other characters about it, but that happens like actually once in the entire movie. When we have the scene where May is counting down the nights and Max says, "Can you stop that?" And then when he runs off, Ash just talk to him about best friends being able to stay with each other, which I'll give credit. That part of the movie I actually like, which I'll get more into when I talk more about the positives of the movie. So in that regard, yeah, I do find the whole thing to be a problem. They want me to feel more sorry for Max and Jirachi, and yet I don't. That may sound a little heartless of me to say, but I haven't seen enough of their relationship for me to buy that this is a tragic farewell. It's a sad farewell, yes, but it's not enough for me to say, oh, they're never going to make me go teary-eyed and say, oh, they're never going to see each other again. That's so sad. No, it doesn't. I wish we would have had more moments like that, which isn't helped by the fact that Jirachi is kind of blissfully ignorant. And so as a result, we don't really have a lot of moments where Jirachi tries having these conversations with Max. As Jirachi, for the majority of the time we see him, is just free-spirited, fun, friendly, wants to goof around. And so we don't really have a lot of time to showcase Jirachi and Max growing closer in that regard. I buy that the two of them are friends, don't get me wrong. And quite frankly, I find it adorable just how attached Jirachi is to Max in the movie. It's just at the same time, their friendship does not feel as fleshed out as it should be. I can buy that Ash and Pikachu are best friends because they've been through thick and thin together, and they always have each other's back. If Pikachu is in danger, Ash will go running to try and protect him. And likewise, if Ash is in danger, Pikachu will risk hiding hair to get back to his human friend. So I buy I buy their connection, but I don't really see that similar connection with Max and Jirachi. We needed more moments of them bonding, actually growing closer, maybe having moments. And I understand Max is like a little kid, so sometimes he doesn't have moments where he can understand such a thing. And I get it. There's that scene between Max and Ash where Ash does kind of help Max understand these feelings. But I would have liked to have a moment like that between Max and Jirachi, where even Jirachi has to realize that he won't see Max again. And even if Jirachi is intentionally blotting out those emotions because he has to, it still would have been nice for him to have a moment with Max. Maybe that moment where Ash says that friends stick with each other, Jirachi could talk about how every time he's woken up every thousands of years, he's met a new friend, and every time he's had to say goodbye, but he remembers them all. It would have been nice, it would have been lovely, and it would have been a genuine shared connection that would have made everything feel deeper, believe it or not. Yeah, again, Jirachi's mentality is like that of a little kid, but Jirachi has been alive for thousands of years if what this movie is telling us is true. So you could argue, and again, what Butler said was that one of the components that Jirachi needed to wake up was that he needed a friend. So are you telling me that all those other friends over those thousands of years meant jack and shit with Jirachi beyond just having someone to goof around with? Or was it just Pokemon he was friends with, which even that, I think, would probably still need something. I don't know. It's just, I feel like that we should have just had more moments between Max and Jirachi in order for me to fully accept that their friendship, that the loss of their friendship is a bigger deal. And so as a result, I don't feel myself feeling my heart pang when I see Max crying about letting Jirachi go. But as a result, it doesn't hit me as hard as the movie wants it to hit me. So I do find that to be a problem. So unfortunately, I think that is kind of a big deal. With that said, the things I do like about the movie are still very much prevalent. For starters, I like Jirachi. Yeah, call me shallow if you want, but I fucking love that adorable star Pokemon. It's just like, the instant that Jirachi appears on the screen, my first words were, "Aww," and it's like, you blame me? Look at this adorable guy. Look at him. Sorry if this. Okay. Let's see if you can look at it. Yeah, look at him. He's fucking adorable. Okay, that smile, the little arms, the star head. The thing is just so freaking huggable, and his personality goes along with it. Now the thing is, Jirachi can talk as he has telepathy, much like Mewtwo. So he can talk with Max and Co., which in turn allows us to get to know his personality. And Jirachi is mentally like a little kid. He likes having fun, he likes goofing around, and he can even be kind of a smartass at points. Like, again, one of my favorite moments in the movie, believe it or not, was when May told Jirachi to get rid of the problem, and Jirachi's response is, "Okay," before teleporting May into the pile of candy. That's a smart aleck right there. And we see that kind of prevalent throughout the rest of the movie. Any moments we see between Max and Jirachi are just the two of them playing and having fun together. And that's one of the reasons why I don't call their relationship shallow, because we do at least have moments where they're just goofing off together. And believe it or not, I can buy that this is what friends would do. And it's adorable. It's sweet. Yeah, I wish we could have had more like personal moments where we saw Max kind of confronting the fact that he and Jirachi won't be seeing each other again after Jirachi goes to sleep. But at the very least, what we do have of them is genuinely cute and adorable, and it makes my heart smile, damn it. And I love that. I genuinely love that. In fact, because Jirachi is just so sweet, innocent, and kind of a smartass, it does make me feel sad when bad things happen to him. When he's put into Butler's machine the first time, time and it goes haywire, I feel sorry for this thing, as, like I said, Butler has to use his Dusclops to force Jirachi to open his true eye, and you can hear the pain in Jirachi's voice when he says, I don't want to. It's genuinely sad. And when Ash and Co come in and save Jirachi, he's just cowering in Max's arms going, I want to go home to Farina. And even when they're driving away, and even when Ash and Co are with Diane and they're driving away from the festival, he's still cowering and scared. And it breaks my heart, man. It's just kind of it's just kind of sad, because before this, we just saw Jirachi being a cute little smart aleck, just playing around, goofing off, and having fun, playing little pranks on people because he thought it was because he thought it was just harmless fun. And now here we see him cowering and scared, and you do want to help this little guy. So in that regard, yes, the movie does work. And at the same time, I actually do like Diane and Butler's relationship. Now again, I wish that Butler could have had more moments that would have helped better the transition between him going from bad to good. But at the same time, I would have actually I do at least buy the Diane side of things. Butler, in my opinion, felt like he was a little too lost in his obsession to showcase any affection towards Diane. Like, again, he didn't mistreat her or anything, but at the same time, I feel like we could have had a little bit more to show there was goodness in him. But in the case of Diane, I like how I love the fondness she has for the memory of who Butler was. And I feel like, honestly, that part I think is a good emotional core. And we actually do get a sense of what she's going through as when she actually does talk about how she and Butler always grew up together, and even now that he's kind of gone over the deep end, she still cares about him, and she wants him to just come back to the side of the angels. Hell, when he accidentally creates evil Groudon, the first thing she does with him is, instead of telling him what the hell have you done, she says, how can we stop this thing? Because she still defers to him in the situation, because she knows what kind of a person he is, and it's ultimately her sacrifice that ends up getting him out of his heroic BOSD, or villainous BOSD, I don't know, when he basically makes him realize, oh shit, I gotta stop this thing. So in that regard, I like it. I do like that. And even the ending of this movie, I actually kind of like. I will give credit where it's due. I liked Evil Groudon. Like, this thing is just it's a nightmare in Groudon form. I love the way it looks. I love that it just incorporates the shape of Groudon into this perversion of life. I love the fact that we see it having blank eyes, and that the most that it looks like Groudon is the markings on its back, its body, and the spikes. Beyond that, this thing is clearly not Groudon. It looks like a hideous monster. And the thing is, it just kills because that's what it does. It's the energy of the Millennium Comet just turned on its head. As instead of giving life, it's taking it away. And once it gets a taste that there's a threat, and once it realizes there's a threat, it goes a step further as it literally begins absorbing anything that moves, even trying to absorb Jirachi, because Jirachi kind of coalesces with the energy that makes it up. So in that regard, it's terrifying. I like that. I do genuinely like that. And even in the end, and it's definitely action packed. It has tense atmosphere, though I will give some crap because there are 2 times in the climax where Butler says, okay, I need you to do this one specific thing and everything will work out, and then a second after he says that, things go wrong. It's like, dude, you're fucking jinxing it. Do you want this plan to work or don't ya? So I don't know, that's just kind of a weird thing. But even the ending, I'll still actually give credit. The ending actually does feel like it hits a sweet spot. Because again, while I would have liked it if we had more moments between Max and Jirachi that had them deal with the fact that Jirachi was going to be going away after the 7-day cycle, when Jirachi does come back safe and sound and then wishes for everyone to give him a lullaby to sleep, it's actually pretty damn sweet. It's nice, and it does hit me right in the feels. And even the final moment in the movie where Jirachi sends out one last message to Max telling him that they'll be best friends forever and ever, it's cute. It's just gosh darn cute. And that's exactly why I still like this movie. It is not the best of the Pokemon movies. Don't misunderstand. The villain is a mixed bag for me, and I feel like could have been better. And while I do think he has his moments, I feel like he could have had more to him. The emotional core of the movie, I feel like it should have had more to it, and as a result, it doesn't really hit as hard in the finale when it really should. But honestly, I think the rest of the movie is fine on its own. Jirachi's adorable. I like seeing him and Max do cute shit together. I like the emotional core with Diane. The climax with Evil Groudon is a lot of fun, and even the ending, despite it lacking the emotional depth that I wish it had, does still manage to hit you in the right amount of feels that you do still feel a little, that it does make you smile when it's all over. So in that regard, this movie is not perfect. It's not. It definitely has its fair share of flaws, and it's objectively probably not in anyone's top 10 Pokemon movies. Although if it is in your top 10, good on you. I'm glad it is. But on the whole, I do think the film is just fine. It's enjoyable for what it is. It's a nice, cute flick that I think is a good way to help pass the time. There's really nothing too deep about it. There's really nothing too grandiose about it. It's just a cute little movie about a little legendary Pokemon that's supposed to grant wishes and just likes to have fun whenever it wakes up. So, yeah, on that regard, I think it's nice. Again, not great, but nice for what it is. And I think that's really all the film needs to be. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week as we get to a movie that actually deals with a lot less cute shit, as we see a kid dealing with Pokemon-related trauma with Destiny Deoxys.